Hello, everyone. I'm here with some mediocre opinions about PerspectiveAPI.com. Perspective is a machine learning algorithm that's supposed to figure out how toxic a comment is. What does toxic mean? Well, it's defined right here. This model was trained by asking people to rate internet comments on a scale from very toxic to very healthy contribution. Toxic is defined as a rude, disrespectful, or unreasonable comment that is likely to make you leave a discussion. The way they describe this leads me to believe that it's supervised machine learning, which I'll get into later. As for the definition of toxic, it's a little vague and maybe even Orwellian, but I believe it's referring to the kinds of comments that actually don't contribute anything to the discussion. The ones you see on fresh Reddit posts that later get downvoted to oblivion, along with anything else that goes against the hive mind. Let me try and give you an idea of what I'm talking about. A comment like, "This is stupid," contributes nothing, and it matches 95%. "This is all lies," matches 45%. It's a bit toxic, but it's at least trying to make a point. If you want to get really crude, "Fuck this article," matches 96%, also contributing nothing. Now let's start trying to probe at this and see how it's actually working. Say if you type in "nigger faggot," it matches 34%, which isn't quite high for the content of the comment. However, put a space in there, and you've got 95%. Switch the order, and you've got 93%. So now we've already figured out that whole words matter and their order matters in this algorithm. As for this possibly being a tool for the liberals to silence any opposing opinions, I'm just going to run some tests like "liberals are all wrong," which matches 31%. And if you replace liberals with conservatives, it matches 21%. Now let's try "you liberals are all naive." That matches 54%. And if you replace it with conservatives, you get 46%. Let's do one more, 3 times the charm, or something like that. "Liberals are all stupid," yields very high 96%. If you say they're all the same, which frankly is close to as bad of a statement, the algorithm recognizes it at a much lower 11%. And let's run the conservative test. "Conservatives are all the same" gives 4%, and "conservatives are all stupid" gives a whopping 95%. So there is a bit of a liberal bias in the outcome, but I think it's more due to Perspective being fed more anti-liberal comments as training data rather than there being some purposeful bias to try and silence conservative opinions from this software. Speaking of learning material, let's talk about what supervised machine learning actually is. Here, I have the section of Wikipedia with a quick and dirty detailing of the process, and I'll give my own quick and dirty detail of this quick and dirty detail, as well as how it applies to Perspective. First, you provide the algorithm with a set of inputs and outputs called the training set. In Perspective's case, the inputs are a set of predetermined comments, and the outputs are ratings those comments were given in the survey described by the "What's Toxic" blurb. Next, you define input features for the algorithm to work with. I believe that for this, Perspective takes into account each whole word in order, as evidenced by the wording X% similar to on the page, as well as the examples above. Next, you define input features for the algorithm to work with. I believe that for this, Perspective takes into account each whole word in order, as evidenced by the wording they give, X% similar to, as well as the examples I went over before. It could be more complex than that, but this works well enough as a hypothesis. Finally, the algorithm starts its training. Each input is run through the algorithm, and the result is compared to the expected output in the training data. The algorithm then starts tuning those input features until the algorithm's outputs start to match the expected ones in the data. There's a lot more that goes into it, but I think that's a good enough explanation to bring people up to speed without being too verbose and letting us talk about it. Now that I've explained what Perspective is, I want to share some final thoughts and opinions. First, I want to say that this isn't just another Microsoft Tay. Tay's big issue was that it collected its training data from the open internet, which left it able to be exploited by anyone and everyone. Perspective, on the other hand, its training data appears to be collected and vetted by its creators, with the end product being the algorithm after training with the data. It's not going to be retrained by the comments it reads, so it can't get corrupted by simply commenting in a certain way. The only way it changes is if its creators add some more training data or manually tweak the parameters. As for my opinion on Perspective, I think it does have some viable applications. It does a good enough job in discerning complete vitriol from something that at least has a nugget, something worth talking about. Since Perspective's algorithm yields a spectrum, it's up to whoever's implementing the software to decide what action is taken and at what percentage. For example, a bad implementation could just delete comments under 50%, getting a ton of false positives that could actually bring up a good discussion. A good implementation, on the other hand, could just give an option to sort all the comments by the percentage they get, while keeping them all visible. Just because a tool can be used for evil doesn't necessarily mean it shouldn't exist. Anyway, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching.